Hello and welcome back to the Greek Pyramid. On the back of the Solangelo book being released next year, I thought it would be interesting to think about some other spin-off books that I would like to see, maybe you'd like to see. I think there's a lot of scope for side books, given the number of characters we have available to us and the various different pantheons there are. There is an obvious spoiler warning here, as events all the way up to Trials of Apollo are going to be discussed, so let's jump straight in. I think this one is probably the most likely to happen, as we've got two well-established characters, part of the Hunters now, with Talia and Rayna, which provides perfect grounds for a book about them. As we can see Rayna settling into her life with the Hunters, allowing us to probably have a dual perspective book, with Rayna taking some chapters whilst Talia takes the other. One thought I did have for this book is, with Rayna used to being in command of the Legion, will she be able to let someone else take control and follow their orders? Obviously, her shared strength power would be quite useful when hunting as a reasonably big group. So, what is the premise or goal for this book? When we last saw the Hunters, they were trying to hunt down the Tumesian fox. So naturally, this would be the premise, as they tried to track and hunt the fox. Although, the fox is destined to never be caught, and considering that is kind of the Hunters' entire deal, I'm not entirely sure how this one could be resolved. Maybe it's meant to be some form of poetic ending for the Hunters, as they spend the rest of their days trying to catch something that can't be caught, almost like a final mission that can't ever be solved. There are a couple of prequels on this list, and the first one is about Shen Lun, Frank's great-grandfather. We know that he was blamed for the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, due to him being the descendant of Poseidon. This led to him being exiled, despite not causing the earthquake. So I'd like to see this story with a potential monster/main antagonist being the one that is capable of causing this earthquake, and we see Shen Lun trying to figure out who is responsible so that he can be reinstated. Some greater conspiracy behind all of it. Maybe even Gaia creating an earthquake in her slumber to try and disgrace Frank's ancestor so he wouldn't be accepted into Camp Jupiter. As we've seen, she realised how important Leo was as a child and tried to torment him. She may have also tried to stem the path of Frank being able to be the part of the Prophecy of Seven. I also think it would be quite interesting to see a story set in a different time period for Camp Jupiter. The next one is another prequel. You might be sick of the prequels by the end of this video, and I don't know if it would all work or fit in one book. And I believe Rick has currently said he's only writing standalones, as far as we're aware, rather than series. But I think a Jason prequel about his rise with the 5th cohort is in order. We can see his relationship with many of the people at Camp Jupiter, such as Rayna, as we see them growing closer before Jason is snatched away by Hera. Get to see how he navigates dealing with Octavian on a day-to-day basis and ensuring Octavian's power-hungry nature doesn't start to rule the camp. Obviously, it would all be leading to him leading the 5th cohort into battle and his fight with Kryos before his eventual disappearance. It would obviously almost be a reflection of Percy's time leading the Greeks to defeat Kronos, but with Jason, and however that story plays out in that part of the world. The penultimate spin-off we have today is one with Piper in her new life in Oklahoma, potentially exploring her relationship with Shell, as Apollo just kind of drops in on them in the Tower of Nero. We will also be able to see her and her father adjusting to their life, allowing us to take a further dive into Piper's character without the normal characters around. I can also see this involving some Cherokee myths and gods, with some Greek maybe still sprinkled in. I must admit my knowledge of Cherokee myths is pretty limited, so I can't particularly speculate on who or what this would involve, in terms of who she'd have to fight or persuade. Let me know if you have any ideas about what would be some good Cherokee myths to fit into a Piper spin-off. But in general, I think it would just be nice to see how Piper is handling her new life before it all goes haywire with some monster disturbing the peace. Also, at what point does she have to explain this all to Shell? If Shell is basically a secondary character in this book, how does she believe Piper in any way about all that's going on? So, the final spin-off idea, which I thought would be worth looking at today, is, you may have guessed it, another prequel, which is an Annabeth first-person book about her life leading her to Camp Half-Blood, including running away from home and her time with Luke and Talia. I think it could help to add a bit more depth to the relationship between Luke and Annabeth, and allowing us greater insight into their little family setup they have going on. I mean, the main idea of Monsters is going to be survival, as they try and make it to camp and are consistently attacked. Particularly, I presume, if you have 3 pretty powerful demigods, that's going to send up flares all over the shop. Obviously, as it continues to move on, we will get a Grover cameo, as he was the one who was trying to lead them to camp. I've got to admit, I think this is probably the weakest suggestion on here, as we've seen flashbacks and we have kind of seen this story play out to an extent. Maybe it would work better as a Luke perspective, as we see him turn against the gods, and it could instead extend up to the Lightning Thief when he joins Kronos' cause and steals the Master Bolt. Instead, helping to show us why he decided to go down that path rather than helping out Camp Half-Blood. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Let me know which of these spin-off standalone books you would most like to see, or if there are any other standalone books you would like to see with your favourite characters. I'll see you next time for another video. Goodbye.